I'm definitely very passionate about Zimbabwe, and I'm sure I can see several faces here that are equally as passionate about this nation. When we speak at events like this, we are here to proffer ideas. And that's exactly what we are going to do, talking about the importance of vision, values, and godly principles in nation building. Now, I don't know of any pastor that can be given 20 minutes and they take 20 minutes, but I intend to change that narrative today. When we're talking about vision, values, and godly principles, I'm going to take a bit of a different approach to it. When we look at the issue of vision, certain things are important in the issue of vision. And these things are that there must be national consensus around a vision. If you are going to do proper national building, there has to be national consensus that has to be built. A vision must have consistency that is maintained. In other words, we're able to stay the course as a nation. There must also be clarity. There's clarity required so that it is clear and everyone also knows and understands what the vision is. There has to be resilience as well, because as we know, not everything is in a test tube. There are things that happen, events that occur. And those events, if you are not strong enough, can affect so that the vision is not achieved. The key thing that we need to understand about vision is that shifting vision causes constant change of destination, because a vision is a destination. And yet the destination determines the route one takes. So when there is constant change of vision, then we have the risk that also we have to constantly be changing routes. And when you constantly change routes, you never arrive. If I were a time, I would take you through the journey of Zimbabwe. Even if we take from 1980, we have an amazing vision. It's a vision of forgiveness. It's a vision of unity. It's a vision where it's a Zimbabwe for all. And interestingly enough, we get to the year 2000, the vision changes. It's a vision of retribution. It's a vision of different citizens called different names. And it's a vision of self-preservation. We move a little bit further than that, and we get to 2009, and we have a vision of unity. We have a vision of stability. We have a vision that speaks of progress. Then we get to 2014. I don't know. I'm sorry. I have question marks on that. I'm not too sure in 2014 what the vision was, but something shifted. Then we've got 2017, and we hear of reconstruction. Well, we see some bit of self-preservation there as well. And at the same time, we also hear of the need for us to be able to progress and go further. My point being, we are changing the vision of the nation regularly. So because we are changing the vision of the nation, we keep looking for new routes. And when you keep looking for new routes, it sounds good, but you never arrive. Then we want to look at values. The basis of the value system determines the imprint on the nation. So your values have an imprint on the nation. It's what the nation becomes and is identified with. A value system is not in its words, but in its essence. So same words can be used in two different set of values and yet convey two very different meanings, e.g. integrity. If you go to one set of people, integrity can mean something quite different. You go to another set of people, the same word can mean something quite different. Therefore, the value system is determined by the foundation it is based on. It is this foundation or root of the value system that exhibits rather than intentions and good thoughts. We may have good thoughts, we may have intentions, and we may mention them and express them as values, but as long as they are good thoughts and intentions and are not coming from a solid and set foundation from which to influence those values to be lived and to be kept, then those values will not see the light of day in terms of execution. And then I say that even if a voucher intends to be a swan, it still exhibits the characteristics and values of its DNA. So even a voucher can have good intentions. It says, swan looks beautiful. A swan, it looks amazing, and I want to be a swan. But the moment it rises and just utters its shrill cry, you'll know it's not a swan, but a voucher. So we can say all the values we want to say. We can speak of values we want to have, and they can sound good. But if the foundation of those values is not correct, what comes out of the values is not the intention. What comes out of the values is the reality of its foundations. Therefore, a value system is re-engineered from the DNA of a nation, not by intention and good thought. So for every nation, it's not enough to have intention and good thought. If a nation needs to re-evaluate its values or to set values that are long-term and have longevity, then a nation needs to re-engineer who they really are as a people, at the core of that nationhood. What is at that core of that nationhood? So sometimes we meet, we write amazing plans, we put together amazing values, but for as long as the intrinsic nature of that nation is not changed, always it's not what we intend that comes out, but who we are that comes out. So the collective has to agree and effect the transformation in order for the values to manifest as the fabric of the nation. The collective, the entire nation has to then agree so that together we begin to re-engineer ourselves into who we want to become. Now let's talk a bit about godly principles. Key attributes about godly principles are as follows. Number one, godly principles are irrevocable. They are stable and covenant-based. That means godly principles, because they are covenant-based and they are stable, they are the same from the very beginning right up to now. They do not adjust, they do not change, they remain the same. The second issue is that godly principles are tested. They have withstood the test of time. Generation after generation, people after people, nations after nations, rulers after rulers, philosophies after philosophies, the principles stand the same and remain the same. So they are tested. The third aspect about godly principles is that they are just. In the principles of God, there is compassion. In the principles of God, there is right. In the principles of God, there is consideration. They are considerate in terms of who people are. So the justness of the principles of God is born out of the compassionate nature, the righteous nature, and the fact that he considers who people are. The fourth aspect about godly principles is that they are wise. Now, wisdom, as we know, is the application of knowledge. And so once we speak of being wise, it means they are actually applicable. They work. They are not philosophies. They are not interesting thoughts. They are not good ideas. They actually work. And as I've said, they've been tested before and proven to work. Also, they're not only wise, they are also informed. They've been thoughtfully weighed. By the time that God allows those principles to be established, to be written and communicated as the principles of God, they have been weighed and found fit. They have been weighed and found appropriate. The fifth issue is the principles of God are uniting in nature because they are universally applicable. Doesn't matter the creed, the people, the race, the tongue, the language. The principles of God are universally applicable. So in that essence, they have an ability to unite because they are applicable and acceptable to all. The principles of God, the sixth issue is that they are bold. The principles of God expect opposition, and therefore the principles themselves train to overcome opposition. So already in the principles is the capacity and the ability to withstand opposition, which means that even when there are the issues that happen or occurs, godly principles do not change. They're able to face the opposition and prove to be the overcomers. They are dominion-based. That's why right at the beginning, as he writes in that most wise of books, right in the beginning in Genesis, God states very clearly, he says the mandate is simple, occupy. occupy and be fruitful. And then the seventh aspect is the principles of God are enabling. They give hope. They empower. They build confidence. They allow you to advance, and in themselves have the ability to advance, and they multiply. So the principles of God are not only stable, covenant-based, tested, just, wise and informed, uniting, bold, but they are also enabling. So they are set in such a way that they are not instructions, but they allow for participatory process where the human being can also participate and be part of what is happening. In fact, without the human participation, you don't have the fullness of godly principles. So then, why then do we need to take godly principles and apply them so that the essence of what we're talking about in terms of vision and in terms of values becomes a reality for a nation? Well, when we look at the application of causal reasoning, it emphasizes the need for godly principles as defined by their key attributes, which we have just mentioned, to be the foundational basis of a nation's vision and values. Because when the seven things are a reality and the seven things are the foundation, then causal reasoning says they will, as a result, affect what the vision is, affect what the value is, and have in a vision and value the very essence and manner and nature and structure of those godly principles. So that's why we need them, because those seven things, if you looked at them, answer the need we said we need for vision and value. So they then become the foundation and bring out the effect of vision and values that is effective. What is the effect that application of godly principles will have on a nation's visions and values? The key attributes of godly principles form the basis for vision setting and intrinsic evolution of national values. Now, intrinsic evolution refers to a process of change guided by internal mechanisms rather than external factors. It is shaped by the system's own inherent properties and current state. So when we have godly principles as the foundation of a nation, which inform a nation's vision and a nation's value, what happens is that intrinsic evolution occurs where the nature and manner of those values, as I've said before, begin now to guide internally what the vision is, what the values are, how the vision is followed, and how the values are kept. So there's an intrinsic evolution where the godly principles begin to effect effective change and begin to bring about a reality, a true reality that exhibits itself in the vision and in the values. And not, this becomes an internal mechanism because the godly principles are accepted internally. And the external factors that come in will not then change the vision and values of that nation. Vision that is homegrown with universal consensus has sufficient longevity for tangible progress. Remember, we mentioned earlier that vision must be stable and must have longevity. So when we establish vision that is homegrown, because of that intrinsic evolution from an internal value system, which is based on godly principles, it creates universal consensus in itself and also, therefore, has longevity to allow for tangible progress. So we are able to stay on a course. Values that originate from the right basis and maintain form and structure in application. It means that the other outcome is that we then have values that are originating from the right base and maintain form and structure so that they are not shifting from season to season, time to time, but they are steady and there's a good progress. When a nation achieves this, then that nation can get on with the uninterrupted business of nation building. Because now, personalities can change. Those who govern can vary. Generational succession can occur. And yet, the national focus will remain one and national effort constant when we approach it this way. Difficult seasons can and will come, and yet the ship of the nation will keep an even keel. We need to examine our foundations and reset based on godly foundations so that intrinsic evolution can occur. Now, I have a diagram here as I come to a close. I have a diagram here that I find interesting. The first column there is talking about the traumatic effects of a history of internecine strife. We know what we have experienced as a nation. We know the issues we've gone through. What has it created? It has created partisan interests. It has created polarization. It has created silo mentality, where people only worry about things that matter for them. It has created suspicion. It has created trickery and treachery. It has created entitlement. It has created impunity. It has created self-above community. It has created chronism and a lack of appreciation of the role, it's cut off, but of the role of national institutions. Okay, so in other words, despite the good values that when we read even our constitution, when we say what we are aiming for, what has come out is not our good intention, but who we intrinsically are because of a history we have experienced. So what has come out is not our wish and our will. It's almost like we are unable to help ourselves because who we are comes out. But now, when we are going to do what we are asking each other to do at this important place, and we have intrinsic evolution resulting from godly principles, if we reset ourselves and re-engineer the DNA and allow this nation and other nations to be based on godly principles, the following things will begin to happen. There will be unity of purpose and focus, which determines rallying to vision and values. So no matter the changes that occur, as a nation will remain very much on target of where we are going to, because there will be consensus around that. There will be trust and continuity. Where there was suspicion, trickery, and treachery, there will be trust and continuity. It ensures successive generational growth. We will actually trust those that are coming after us because the heart and the cause is the same. And because the foundation is one, nothing different can come out of them but the same thing. We'll also have productivity and accountability, which impacts economic and social progress, because when there is stability of vision and values, economic progress follows. There will be efficiency and equality, results in equitable development, because godly values allow us to care and have concern for others. It allows us to ask the question, how is every Zimbabwean, how is every Kenyan, how is every Ugandan able to benefit from the issues and the progress of the country? And lastly, it will allow for safety and security because it will defend the national interest. Allowing for safety and security because godly principles speak of inheritance. And when you've got a legacy, you maintain a legacy. May the Lord bless you.
Wow. Thought-provoking, eh? But heavy lifting stuff. Heavy lifting stuff. Are there any questions so that I don't dominate? LF Gulandebele, shall we give him a mic? He's up front there. Whilst we're taking the mic to LF Gulandebele, you know, I look at what you're saying and it gels. But I'm saying to myself, given where we are, the hurts, the trauma that you've spoken about, the toxicity that is there, where does one begin in terms of cleansing us of that hurt, the betrayal, the trauma, so that we begin to heal as a nation? We begin to reconcile. I mean, we have not had a conversation as a nation about what happened during the liberation struggle. Those that were left in Zambia and in Mozambique, how we executed the liberation struggle, the war itself, the bloodletting. We have not had a genuine conversation about Kukuraundi. Mm-hmm. We have not had genuine conversations about the violent elections where arms get cut, people get killed, and all those other things. how do we begin to heal? What's the proper way of getting us to have these conversations that are tough, painful, but necessary towards healing and reconciliation?
If you'd asked me this question a few years ago, I would have told you all about our need to meet, our need to, gather together, have a truth and reconciliation. I now have a different perspective. I now understand that the individual is very powerful. I understand that the actions you do, Trevor, and the actions I do matter to build a nation. I understand that the nation is the sum total of all of us. So I have now come to understand that instead of waiting for some big national event that happens, it has to begin with me. And in that vein, there's something that I've been thinking a lot about called the Good Citizenship Initiative or Good Citizen Initiative. And the intention there is for me to take the responsibility to begin to have a new attitude and a new Zimbabwe. And part of that is for me to heal or seek forgiveness on an individual capacity and to agree that one, there were grievances that happened, two, these things need to be spoken about. Because if I begin, imagine for me, I have people that are part of the organizations I lead. If I then lead them down that way, it means we have 10, 15, 20,000 people who are already now healed and thinking differently. So I'm proposing that instead of waiting for some future amazing event, each of us in our area of leadership and sphere of leadership begin a journey that heals us and a journey where we seek forgiveness.
Wow, it goes back to what we said yesterday. Unless you change, Zimbabwe is not going to change.
Yes.
That's an important realization, and I think that's a message that we ought to evangelize. We can't wait for a big boom event.
Yes.
It looks like it's not going to come. Elif, you had a question over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bishop, for a very enlightening presentation. Madam Director of Ceremony, may I suggest that you embargo Trevor from asking questions before some of us ask, because he's now taking all his questions. But having said that, I feel very passionately about the issue of reconciliation, because I think in terms of coming up with a national idea and a national ID of who we are as a people, I do think that we failed there in doing that, in not doing a kind of national reconciliation. I think in school we always had comparisons with South Africa and how they had at least the veneer of a national identity because they had a process where they did national and truth and reconciliation. So listening to you now, it would seem as if perhaps you do not feel there is much value in that from a national building perspective and a nation building perspective. I just want to know your thoughts on that in terms of, is there no intrinsic value for us as a people in order for us to have a collective moving on? Because I understand the individual aspect of it, accountability and making sure that you as a person are able to move on and to inspire those around you. But I think for a national conversation and for the healing of a lot of families in Matabeleland and all these other affected areas, is there no need for us to have a discussion and where people not only just raise their hands but are accountable, like what South Africa did with the apartheid people who were bombing people, and even on both sides of the aisle. So I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ella, for that question.
Okay, please. So let me just correct you a little bit. I value it very highly, very, very highly. What I'm saying is, what I can't determine is when it's going to be convened or when it's going to happen. So what shall we do? Wait for that day. We are saying we can begin village by village. For example, the church, we definitely can do that. We can begin village by village, family by family, sphere by sphere of influence, and even by the time we are talking about a national time or consensus, it's because already we have worked it out. You are a lawyer, you're involved with corporate people. When you want a certain massive change in a board meeting, you don't introduce it at the board meeting. You go round robin, director by director. And then when you've got everyone now understanding where you are coming from and appreciating why it's necessary, it's just that by the time you're meeting as a board, you know very well this is going to pass. I'm advocating the same so that we don't keep waiting to the state. We take the responsibility ourselves. We are intentional about it. We are open about it, and we begin a process.
Awesome. Any other question? There's a question from my personal pastor, Wazara.
Thank you very much, Bishop Kadziyanike, and for your remarks. And this challenge to the individual to be the nidus for the change. Trevor, I want to present a challenge. And, the people that are failing to talk about issues in the country are not just because they're stubborn. I think sometimes the capacity or the way to handle it is not easy for them. And I think there's going to need for some other Trevor and let's talk about it group that really starts to deal with this. I would take 35 years and under, bring them into a room, different political views, but say, let's talk about these issues that have been, that are running deep in the country but are not being solved. Let's proffer some solutions ourselves and be able to show tolerance amongst us, because, the Madaras are just so contaminated and so polluted that I don't think that they could be the starting point. But this debate needs a convener. That's what I'm saying. And it needs, as we have had ideas like this festival, there could be a talking festival, but with the right target of people that could still change and be impactful.
Wow, there's an assignment, I think, for all of us. Do you want to respond to that?
Let me just say, one, I definitely agree. It's in line with what we're talking about now, for sure. But let's, now we're talking about godly principles. Let's go a bit, I'm a bishop, I'll go into the Bible a bit. I'm sorry for those that don't believe, but the principle applies to everyone. You look at David, and he's told you can't build the temple because your hands are, no, it doesn't say, is it full of what? Well, they fought a war, isn't it? So it probably is right that we need another forum, another convening that is in line and in agreement, because David had the good intention. And we have seen some efforts. Let's also recognize those. We've seen some efforts of trying to do that. But for as long as you're not the right vessel, it can be difficult. So I agree that we do need to do that and find the right vessel to do it.
Okay. Any question? Yes, Dara, you've got somebody there with Ethel with a question.
Thank you, Bishop, for that. My question is, I really loved the godly values, but we are in a world which is really changing and which needs modern governance realities, especially us talking about AI, digital era, and everything else. How best can we maybe put up a nation value framework, seeing that we are no longer living in communities where they just belong to Zimbabwe, but there's a global influence around us?
Thank you, Ethel, for that question.
No, thank you very much. That's why if you see, there was quite a lot of emphasis on the intrinsic evolution, where we are saying when you have your strong set of values, you are able to select and choose what you take from the external that's beneficial and leave out what you think will intrinsically or very deeply change who you are. That is critical for any people. It's important to get outside input. It's important to absorb technologies as they come. But one of the reasons why we say that the values are tested is that they've gone through generations of vast differences. The times of Abraham and the times of the Roman Empire were vastly different. The principles still applied. The times of the Roman Empire and the times of colonization were vastly different. The principles still applied. And same to today. So we are not closing out from outside, but what we're not allowing the outside to do is then to determine who you become. So you take the good, you build on the good, but you remain from a value system point of view and vision intrinsically what that nation intends you to be. That's why we say the godly values will answer for that.
Okay, the chief is there. Nick, I see your hand. Chief? Is he forcing you to ask a question? I suspect so. Let's give the mic to Nick whilst Blessed is working on the chief. Nick is ready with the question.
Thank you, Bishop. I think a very powerful, structured talk. My submission is that this whole thing needed the church to take the lead. And in my space, the church itself is so compromised, so divided, and is so unable to unite as a body of Christ. So that's where the problem is. I believe that if the church were united, despite all these doctrinal differences, if they were truly united in Christ, they would be a voice that can literally get us going. But in my space, the church has failed. Thank you.
The church has failed. That must hurt.
Well, maybe it's not altogether wrong. So we accept responsibility where we should accept responsibility. However, Zimbabwe actually is something quite rare in nations, a platform where almost 80% of the church in Zimbabwe actually comes together. That is very rare, but it is there here. The Zimbabwe Heads of Christian Denomination brings together the Catholics, brings together the mainline churches, brings together the evangelical and Pentecostals, and Judas Caesar as well, which is part of the independent African churches. So that forum exists. What we probably need to do is to broaden it, not just to be a clergy forum, but to bring in the church as a whole, so that together we are then able to effectively begin to impact and effect things in the nation. But the platform exists. We have not harnessed it sufficiently. That's why I say we must take some of the responsibility. But actually there is a platform, which is very rare, which brings the entire church together. And it's a platform that, because of that, it can be effective. So I accept the charge that we can do more, but we thank God that there is a platform that actually exists.
But to Nick's question, should we? No, I find that we might be, and Bishop Trevor Mananga and I have had this conversation. Are we not focusing on the negative? And that negative is the church is divided, the church is compromised. Should we not focus on that section of the church that is not compromised, that identifies with these things, and there is movement there? Because otherwise, the church, none of us would be able to move. It's been surprising to me, and even disappointing in a way, that the moment you say the church, we now are in a position, Nick, where people are actually saying, no, but the church can't lead because the church is as divided, as corrupt as we are. But it's not the whole church that's divided and corrupted. And my thing is, should we not get to a point where we free up the part of the church that the people will identify with and move on? Those that are corrupt, we know who is corrupt around here. Do you want to respond to that before Nick
in fact, maybe one thing that I must explain, and it's maybe a good forum to do that, it is that one of the things about the church is that the church cannot do its function in the nation with a loud hailer in its mouth. The moment we do that, we are unable then to work cross-sector the way we are able to. So there is a lot of things that happen that the church can't say. And yet it's happening. There is a lot of things that if we begin to narrate, after 20 years we can narrate. But now we can't. If we begin to narrate some of the things that we've averted on the verge of real crisis and real possible, the nation possibly going into contention, you would be very shocked and surprised. Why have we carried on having that currency on all sectors is because of the ability to know when we should use a loud hailer and when we should not. Was primarily the persuasion of the church, just like the issue of intrinsic evolution I was talking about, is not so much to bring revolution, but to bring about a change of a value system. That is the core job. And that change does not happen overnight. Sometimes not even in one generation. But the question is, can we see, glimpses of progress as we go on ahead to do that? That's important. There must be trust also, where there's trust that not all the church is seated and enjoying some form of luxury which is given as buying the church. I can assure you there is a part of the church that is firm, that is working day and night. One area which I can speak because it's in the past is the whole area, and Bishop Mananga will know very well, around 2008. If it wasn't for, and I will repeat this again, if it wasn't for the church, you would not have had the GNU. I can say this anytime, any day. Our role at that time could not be said. But the shunting around the proponents here in South Africa, where even the convener then had left because given up on the issue, the church did a lot of work.
Thank you for that.
At another time, more can be said.
Thank you for that.
And the church, by the way, is working right now.
Okay. All right. You're ready, Chief? Please.
Thank you for the first opportunity by Blessed Mhla. I think he has a lot of cows and goats. So I think after this, I will have to exercise my duties. Thank you, Pastor, for your presentation. I had not constructed my question, but then I think I will have to contribute this. What constitutes a national conversation? I heard you mentioning something about it starts with me. We take it village by village, because I think that has always been the problem that we have. If we take it village by village, it then also contributes to the national conversation. For example, when Trevor was opening up the conversation, he spoke something about the issues to do with Kukurahundi that happened in 1983 to 1987, which also ought to be a national conversation. But what becomes a national conversation is the issues to do with Mrambatswina, the issues to do with the era of 2008, because it affected the whole of Zimbabwe. So does it then mean if something happens in Mashonaland, does it concern people in Matabeleland? Do we stand up and discuss in the national platforms to say what is happening on the other side? So in your slide, you mentioned something about the silo mentality, where we have become more individualistic more than as a collective. So I'm just contributing this to say it's not maybe the government, it's not maybe the churches, but it's us. Because if it does not concern me, then it's not a conversation that we should be talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I see a lot of hands. We'll have to take this conversation outside. I'm going to be fired. I don't want to do that. Please respond to the Chief's.
I agree, Chief. I really agree. I think part of the things that we actually do is reach out. We reach out to chiefs. We reach out to, because when you talk of national consensus, you can't do it, by the way, without the traditional chiefs. The way our system works, you can't do it without local government. You can't do it then without the church. So definitely this consensus, I agree, involves everybody. And if we are able to do it where we are all concerned, the issue that we need to take responsibility for is that where we were silent when we should speak, makes everybody complicit. So it can't be one region. Everybody is affected when things happen. And if we are to solve them. So if we had solved the problem in the 80s, all of us would not have had 2008.
Absolutely.
But because we are not dealing with it as we go along, then the problems resurface. But if we begin to do something about them together as a collective, even if that collective means we actually hear everybody and go and deal with it section by section, we will get to the result that we intend to get to.
Fantastic.
Maybe just if you allow me a minute.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're my
the
bishop.
problem with it, I was about to
I'll
say.
get into trouble.
But I understand. In 2013, we did actually convene something that was amazing, where there was the church, we had all the political parties represented at senior level, and we had the chiefs in the room. And when we were doing that, everyone took about 30 minutes or more, were literally weeping because of the issues of the nation that were coming up. It's a pity we did that and stopped. It's conversations that we must continue so that the next generation is not carrying the same scars.
Wow. I mean, I could feel it right there. Bishop, thank you so much. I want to remind us of the challenge that Pastor Wazara has put out there. Is there a group of people, I'm not saying do it right now, 2 or 3 people that say, we want to be part of the conveners of Let's Talk. And we have a momentum that starts the talking, that results in the healing. It's got to start somewhere, good people. And I'm delighted, Bishop, that you've shared. The hands are still up there. People want to talk. But fortunately, you need to leave before the evening because you've got other commitments. But let's take advantage of him during lunch and have the conversation. Bishop, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.